Are you preparing for a sustainability or ESG job and curious that why every company out there is asking about BRSR? Well, if it's yes, then you're at the right place because in the next few minutes, I am going to reveal that how BRSR is not just another report, but it's the single most valuable skill you need to crack an ESG or sustainability job interview. And if you have felt lost in all of these buzzwords and didn't know where to start, well, stick to the end because in this video, we are going to discuss everything about BRSR right from the basics to all of the latest requirements. So stay around because by the end of this video, you are going to know how to exactly read a BRSR report, impress interviewers with real world knowledge, and stand out in the crowd of freshers. So let's get started. So what exactly is BRSR? And if you're stepping into the ESG or sustainability world, especially in India, you would be hearing this term everywhere: business responsibility and sustainability report. So in simple terms, it's a mandatory framework designed by SEBI for India's top 1,000 listed companies to systematically report on their environment, social and governance issues, which are the three pillars of sustainability. Think of BRSR as a structured story. It is used to tell what a company is doing for people, planet, and ethical business all in one place. It's not another jargon, but rather a place where investors, shareholders, customers, and even potential job seekers come to see how seriously the company is taking sustainability. So if you're a fresher preparing for your first ESG job and curious why BRSR is showing up everywhere, well, here's the cue. BRSR reveals if the company is walking the talk on topics like climate change, diversity, supply chain, sustainable sourcing, and community impact. And for you, it's the perfect start point to understand what the ESG job market requires and prepare for your first ever job role in ESG and sustainability. So why is everyone suddenly talking about BRSR and why should you care about it if you're planning for a job in ESG? So BRSR, or Business Responsibility and Sustainability Reporting, is not just another report which companies need to file. It is India's first step towards global alignment on ESG standards. Think of it as the Indian counterpart of EU CSRD reporting or the US climate change disclosures. BRSR is tailor-made for Indian market and Indian regulatory landscape. And here's why it matters to you if you want to start your career in ESG and sustainability. First one is that it requires top 1,000 listed companies to report on BRSR. So more reporting means more jobs for ESG professionals. It creates structured demand for ESG skills. Now take it in this way that BRSR requires reporting on supply chain sustainability, climate risk assessment, data collection, stakeholder engagement, and all of this eventually leads into job creation in these specific domains. And the third one is that BRSR is your stepping stone into the ESG world. So if you're able to grasp and understand BRSR well, the next disclosures like EU CSRD or US climate change disclosures, SASB, TCFD are just aligned to BRSR and not very difficult for you to understand and enter the global ESG job market. So if you're in India or looking forward to work in India, BRSR is your entry ticket to the ESG job market. So first, let's understand how BRSR is structured, because if you understand the format well, it would be very easy for you to read, analyze, and even prepare one report with much ease all by yourself. BRSR report is divided into 3 sections, and all these 3 sections have a clear purpose. The first section is general disclosures, and it covers all the basics about the company, like the name of the company, the sector it works in, the number of employees it has, the type of goods and services it provides. It also covers some of the basic policies and commitments of the company towards ESG and sustainability. The second section is about management and process disclosures. Here, companies explain how their policies and leadership will actually turn into action. And you will find questions like if they have diversity policy, how do they ensure ethical conduct, what steps are in place to ensure environmental protection. This section is about turning policies and promises into actual practical traceable impact. And the third section is the heart of BRSR, which has the principle-wise disclosure. Here there are 9 principles on different topics like employee well-being, human rights, environmental protection, and much more. And for all of these principles, there are real data points wherein companies have to track their progress metrics and insert data for each of the questions. And also there are 2 types of indicators on which the companies need to report on. There is essential indicator and leadership indicators. So essential indicators are basically mandatory indicators and companies cannot skip reporting on them, whereas the leadership indicators are voluntary in nature and companies can choose to disclose or not disclose on them. However, disclosing on the leadership disclosures gives company an edge over other companies who are unable to disclose on the data. So if you break down BRSR in this way, you will understand that it's not just another bulky report, but rather a map or a framework to understand the company's standing in terms of sustainability in a comparable manner with respect to its peer companies. Now, the BRSR has 9 principles. However, there are certain indicators in these 9 principles who are further classified as core indicators. Now, these core indicators are nothing but the indicators which need to be assured by a third-party assurance provider. This ensures that the company is not just greenwashing or providing any data, but it is actually providing genuine data which is assured by a third party. And as you can see from the table on the screen, each year the number of companies who need to undergo assurance of BRSR core is increasing, which also means that there would be more job openings in BRSR assurance in companies who provide assurance to BRSR reports. So now let's dive deep into the 9 principles of BRSR. Now the first principle is about ethics, transparency and accountability. And here you will find questions like trainings provided to key managerial people and board of directors on ethical matters, fines and penalties the company had to pay due to transparency and ethics issues faced by their board of directors or key managerial people, and also provide disclosure on some of the cases if there are any cases related to ethics and transparency the company had to undergo. The second principle is about product safety and responsibility. Here companies have to report on products life cycle assessment, customer health and safety to ensure that the product is not creating any harm to the environment or people. The third principle is about employee well-being and employee engagement, and this includes questions related to the safety and health matrix of the employees, as well as the trainings provided to them, the engagement opportunity provided to employees. And some questions in Principle 3 are also part of the BRSR core indicator. Principle 4 is about stakeholder engagement, and this principle covers questions related to how well companies engage with their stakeholders like shareholders, customers, communities, investors, and take into consideration their feedback while making decisions related to the company. This principle ensures that there is transparency in decision making at company level. Principle 5 is about human rights, and this principle emphasizes on ensuring and enforcing human rights in the company's own operations and value chain. So this includes ensuring that there is no child labor or forced labor within the company's own operation as well as in its value chain. Then comes Principle 6, which is all about environment, and here companies need to disclose on environmental indicators such as energy, water, waste, greenhouse gas emissions, pollution, and much more. Companies need to provide actual assured values on data points such as energy consumed from renewable and non-renewable sources, electricity consumption, water withdrawal, water consumption, water disposal, sources of water consumption and disposal, waste generation, waste segregation, waste disposal techniques, scope 1, scope 2 and scope 3, greenhouse gas emissions, pollutants emitted in the air, and all of these these indicators in Principle 6 are some of the main components of the core indicators which need to be assured by third-party assurance provider. So Principle 6 is one of the most important indicator you need to focus on in BRSR to not just understand the environmental aspects of ESG, but to also understand the assurance requirements of the core indicators in detail. Principle 7 is about public policy, and here the disclosures revolve around engagement of the company with government policies, lobbying activities, and political contributions. Principle 8 is about inclusive development and CSR, wherein companies need to disclose on their economic and social contribution to the communities they are involved with. Principle 9 is about consumer responsibility, and here companies need to report on how they ensure fair label, fair marketing practices, customer data privacy, and promote responsible consumption. So now that you know about the 9 principles of BRSR, let us now have a look at some of the latest requirements from SEBI around BRSR. First is their strong focus on value chain. Now, companies need to report not just on their own operations, but also expand the reporting to their value chain, which includes suppliers, distributors, partners that contribute to total 75% of their purchase or sales. This means that companies need to engage with their value chain partner to ensure that sustainability is practiced not just within their four walls, but is ensured beyond the company's own operations. The second is around assurance. So earlier the assurance for BRSR was only limited, but now companies need to mandatorily conduct reasonable assurance, especially for the BRSR core indicators, which ensures that the transparency and reliability of the data is increasing. Third, there are additional leadership indicators added in the BRSR report, which improves the transparency and data reporting. Now, some of these leadership indicators include green credit disclosure, highlighting of companies' carbon footprint, and enhanced climate action. This encourages companies to set higher standards and go beyond compliance. Fourth, the format and reporting timelines are becoming much more strict. With this, companies are encouraged to report in digital and standardized formats that helps investors and regulators have a comparable data to help them make data-driven decisions. For freshers, understanding these new changes is absolutely important because most of your interview questions are going to revolve around these evolving changes which keep coming up in BRSR each year. And now the most important question of all, how to prepare for BRSR reporting roles and interviews. First and foremost, build a strong foundation of BRSR by understanding the 3 different sections in BRSR, Section A, Section B, and Section C, and what each of these sections require. Once you have a good understanding of each of these sections, then go section-wise to understand how and what data the company requires to report. Once you get an overview of the first 2 sections, Section A and Section B, then move to the Section C, which has the 9 principles. Understand each principle well and go question by question and kind of create a reverse mechanism to understand where this data will come from and what impact each of these data points will have. And then you can further create your own notes or repository for each of the 9 principles with which you can absolutely impress the interviewer. So let's begin with Principle 3. Now, as you can see on the screen, the first question in Principle 3 is about details of measures for well-being of employees. And here you can see you need to track data on aspects like health insurance, accident insurance, maternity, paternity benefits, daycare facilities provided to permanent and other than permanent employees. So here you first need to understand what these requirements are, such as what is a health insurance, accident insurance, what are the maternity benefits that companies need to provide as per Indian laws, and then try to understand how this data can be acquired. So here the simple mechanism to acquire data is that in the HR database or the HR repository, the HR might be having information on all of these aspects, such as while joining the organization, how many employees on payroll or on contract were provided with all of these benefits, And in this way, you can answer the question if they ask that, how will you calculate or accumulate this data. Similarly, to take another example, now let's go to principle 6. Now, as you can see on the screen, in principle 6, the first question is about details of total energy consumption and energy intensity. And here the question is about total electricity consumption, total fuel consumption, and total energy consumption through other sources. Now, how will you find this data? So it's very simple. To find the total electricity consumption data, you need to say that the data will be acquired through the electricity bills the company might be paying. So you will find this information in the financial database of the bills paid. Similarly, for total fuel consumption, so again, the fuel consumption data would either be in, again, the financial database where the fuel bills are paid, as well as in the daily logbook for different fuels such as petrol refilled in vehicles, or if there are any manufacturing facilities, then the fuel must be procured and stored in the manufacturing facility sites. And then for energy consumed through other sources, so if there are any other sources through which energy is consumed, like say solar or wind or biomass energy, then you need to make sure that all of these sources are taken into consideration while reporting. Similarly, now if you go to question 3, which is about water withdrawal from various sources. So again, you need to understand from which sources the company is withdrawing water, for example, surface water or groundwater or third party water, seawater, and all of this information would again be available at each of the site. So you need to understand if there is municipal water coming into the company premises, then the municipal water will be third party water. Then if the company is withdrawing water from say a lake or any water body which is within the company premises, or if they are directly sourcing it from some lake or some surface water body without the involvement of any third party or municipality, then it would be surface water consumption. If the company has their own bore wells or wells in their premises, then that would come under groundwater sources. And if the company has any distillation plants for water consumption or procuring water, then that would come in seawater or distilled water sources. And if there are any other sources from where the company is acquiring water, then the sources will come in that manner. So to have a greater depth on BRSR, you first need to go through each of the questions and understand each of the questions fundamentally of what is required and why it is required. Similarly, if you go to question 6 of principle 6, which requires disclosures on GHG emissions, so you can refer to my GHG emission video and you will realize that you need to understand fundamentally well what are scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 emissions, how each of these emissions occur, how they are tracked, and that is when you will get into the nitty-gritty of BRSR for each of the questions. And to make all of these questions easier, SEBI has also uploaded a guidance document which provides information on what exactly is required from each of the question in each of the principle. And further to that, if you still have any questions or doubts regarding any of the question, then you can drop your questions in the comments below and I will try to answer all of your doubts related to BRSR. So I hope with this video your concepts, basic fundamental concepts related to BRSR is cleared. I know it would be a long video if I would take each principle, each question indicator principle wise and explain how to report on it, where to gather data and what exactly is expected. But it would be like a very long video. So if you guys are interested in having such detailed video with each question, each indicator, do let me down in the comments below and I'll try to make a video, much more detailed video on BRSR. But till then, try to understand the core fundamentals and basics of BRSR well. And till we get back with another video, stay impactful, stay gen sustainable, and let me know in the comments what other type of videos or what topics would you like me to cover and I would get back. soon with a video on these topics. Bye bye.